Hi there, and welcome back. I heard you've been working through the Session 4 workbook, and honestly, that kind of steady practice is exactly what moves your band score up. Nice work staying consistent. Today we're picking up right where we left off, Business and Economy, page 2, words 11 through 20. Same 5 parts as always. Vocabulary, listening, reading, writing, and speaking, plus an optional continue learning section at the end. Let's keep that momentum going. 10 more words, starting now. Merger. Merger. The combining of two or more companies into a single new organization. The merger created one of the largest firms in the industry. The two banks announced a merger, and their shares rose sharply the next day. Although the merger promised significant cost savings, many employees worried about losing their jobs during the transition. Acquisition. Acquisition. The act of a company buying another company or a controlling share of it. The acquisition doubled the company's customer base overnight. The tech giant completed the acquisition, and its stock price climbed within hours. Because the acquisition was funded almost entirely through debt, analysts questioned whether the company could manage the added financial risk. Subsidy. Subsidy. Money provided by a government or organization to lower the cost of a product, service, or activity. The government offered a subsidy to help small farms survive. The subsidy lowered production costs, and local prices fell as a result. Although the subsidy was meant to protect struggling manufacturers, critics argued it discouraged genuine competition in the market. Monopoly. Monopoly. Complete control of the trade or supply of a product or service by a single company. The company held a near monopoly over the region's rail freight. Regulators broke up the monopoly, and several smaller firms entered the market. Because the monopoly had eliminated nearly all competition, prices remained artificially high for over a decade. Diversify. Diversify. To expand a business into new products, services, or markets in order to reduce risk. The firm decided to diversify into online retail. The company diversified its product line, and overall sales became far more stable. Because relying on a single product had left the company vulnerable, its directors chose to diversify into 3 new markets within 2 years. Outsource. Outsource. To arrange for work or services to be done by an outside company rather than by staff within the organization. The company decided to outsource its customer support. They outsourced manufacturing to a partner overseas, and production costs fell significantly. Although outsourcing reduced short-term costs, the company eventually lost some control over the quality of its finished products. Liability. Liability. A debt, financial obligation, or legal responsibility that a business owes. The unpaid loan became a serious liability for the business. The company's liabilities grew quickly, and investors began to lose confidence. Because the firm's liabilities exceeded its available assets, the board was forced to consider drastic restructuring. Asset. Asset. Property, equipment, or resources owned by a business that hold financial value. The warehouse is one of the company's most valuable assets. The firm sold several assets, and it used the proceeds to pay off its debts. Although selling the factory freed up much-needed cash, it also removed one of the company's most productive long-term assets. Dividend. Dividend. A portion of a company's profit that is paid out to its shareholders. The company paid its first dividend after 3 profitable years. Profits rose sharply, and shareholders received a larger dividend than expected. Even though the company increased its dividend, several analysts warned that the payout was not sustainable in the long term. Bankruptcy. Bankruptcy. A legal process that occurs when a person or company is unable to repay its outstanding debts. The retailer filed for bankruptcy after years of falling sales. The company declared bankruptcy, and hundreds of employees lost their jobs. Although the business narrowly avoided bankruptcy, it took several years for its reputation and revenue to fully recover. All 10 new vocabulary words. That's the hardest part done, again. Now it's time to listen. Part A is a quick 30 to 50 second warm-up script with 2 easy questions, just to ease you in. Part B is the real deal. A full listening section with 10 questions, just like the actual exam. My honest tip stays the same as always. Hide the script before you press play, so you're truly listening instead of reading along. Let's tune in. After years of relying on a single product line, the small manufacturer chose to diversify into new markets, and outsourced part of its production to keep costs manageable. Welcome back to Market Notes. 3 years ago, Elmswood Furniture Company was heading toward bankruptcy after losing its largest contract in a single month. Rather than close its doors, the owner, Daniel, agreed to a merger with a rival firm, Kestrel Design, combining both companies' workshops under one roof. At one point, a much larger retailer had offered to buy Elmswood outright, but Daniel turned down the acquisition, preferring to keep local control of the business. To help protect manufacturing jobs during the transition, the regional council awarded the newly merged company a small subsidy, covering part of the cost of retraining staff. With finances more stable, Daniel decided to diversify the business, moving beyond traditional furniture into custom home fittings sold directly online. To manage the extra orders without hiring a large logistics team, the company chose to outsource its shipping and warehousing to a specialist partner nearby. Even with these changes, Elmswood still carried a heavy liability from an old bank loan taken out before the merger. To reduce that debt, the board sold an unused second factory, one of the company's few remaining valuable assets, and used the proceeds to pay the loan off completely. Within 18 months, the company had grown steadily enough that, in its small regional niche of custom furniture, it now holds something close to a monopoly, with almost no serious local competitors left. Last month, for the first time in the company's history, shareholders received a dividend. Daniel says the lesson he took from the whole experience is simple. Sometimes the safest way to grow a business is not by refusing every hard decision, but by choosing carefully which ones to accept. Let's go through part B together, question by question, and I'll share a tip along the way for each question type, so you can use it on any similar question in the future, not just this one. Question 1 is B. Daniel agreed to a merger rather than accepting the acquisition offer. For multiple choice, always listen for a contrast word like but, or, rather than, because that's usually the exact moment the correct answer appears. Question 2 is B. The subsidy covered part of the retraining costs. Notice how the option mentioning the bank loan is a distractor. It's a real detail from later in the recording, just attached to the wrong question, so always match the detail to the right moment in the story. Question 3 is B. Outsourcing let them manage extra orders without hiring a large team. For reason-based questions like this, listen for the word to, as in, to manage, because that's often where the speaker's real purpose is stated. Questions 4 to 6 are sentence completion, and the answers are bankruptcy, assets, and monopoly. For this type, the tip is to read the sentence before the recording starts, so you already know what kind of word is missing, a noun, a number, or a name, before you hear it. Questions 7 and 8 are short answer, and the answers are a subsidy and a dividend. Here, stick strictly to the word limit given in the instructions, because writing extra words can mark the answer wrong even if the meaning is correct. Questions 9 and 10 are matching, and the answers are A and B. Selling the factory paid off the liability, and outsourcing managed the extra orders. For matching questions, cross out each option as you use it, since one purpose is always a distractor you don't need, and that habit stops you from accidentally reusing an answer. As a general rule for any listening question type, remember that the recording almost always paraphrases the words in the question, so train yourself to listen for the idea being expressed, not the exact wording you expect to hear. You made it through listening again. That 10-question section is genuinely demanding, so well done. Now, reading. Tap show passage to reveal Amara's story. A skincare company that came close to bankruptcy, then turned things around. Read it once at your own pace, and notice the highlighted keywords, they're all from today's list. Then work through the 3 questions underneath. I won't spoil the answers here. Once you've had a go, I'll walk you through exactly why each one is correct. So, here's why. Question 1 is false. The passage clearly says Amara negotiated a merger instead of accepting the acquisition, so don't let the word acquisition appearing in the passage trick you into marking it true. Question 2 is B. Outsourcing packaging was specifically about keeping costs low without building a new facility. And question 3, it was the underused warehouse that she sold to clear the old liability. Notice how question 1 worked. It tested whether you'd confuse a word simply appearing in the text with the actual claim being made. That's a classic true, false, not given trap, and paraphrasing is exactly how the real exam disguises the correct answer. So always trace it back to the exact sentence. Great reading work. Spotting that acquisition trap shows you're really reading closely now. On to writing. You've got 3 tasks again: a chart on mergers and acquisitions by sector, a short letter for a local newsletter, and an essay on government subsidies. This time, I'll walk you through each task separately, right after you've had a go at it. Structure, vocabulary, all of it, one task at a time instead of all at once at the end. For each task, we'll walk through the advanced model answer. However, for the intermediate level, we'll show its answer too, so you can compare the two side by side. Every prompt and model answer also has a slow, play slowly button now, so you can really hear the sentence structure. Let's start with task 1. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The line graph below shows the percentage of small businesses in 3 sectors, technology, manufacturing, and retail, that reported a merger or acquisition each year between 2020 and 2024. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features, and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. For a line graph like this one, structure matters as much as vocabulary. Start with one sentence that simply restates what the graph shows, in your own words, don't copy the question. Then write a short overview sentence naming the 1 or 2 biggest patterns. Here, that every sector rose, but technology rose fastest. Only after that overview should you move into specific numbers and dates in your body paragraphs. A common mistake is jumping straight into details without an overview first. Examiners are specifically looking for that big picture sentence, so don't skip it. As I mentioned, we'll walk through the advanced model answer first. However, for the intermediate level, we'll show its answer too, so have a look at both versions above. For a short task like this, the structure is simple, but the trap is trying to say too much. With only 1 or 2 sentences, pick one clear idea, here, how a business changed, and build a single well-linked. A local newsletter is asking small business owners how they responded to rising costs. Write 1 to 2 sentences describing how a business you know responded, using vocabulary from today's list. For a short task like this, the structure is simple, but the trap is trying to say too much. With only 1 or 2 sentences, pick one clear idea, here, how a business changed, and build a single well-linked sentence around it, rather than listing 3 separate things. Notice how the model uses rather than. It chose to connect 2 actions in one flowing sentence, That's a much stronger technique than two short, choppy sentences joined with and. Again, we'll walk through the advanced model answer. However, for the intermediate level, we'll show its answer too, so compare both above. Some people believe governments should provide a subsidy to prevent struggling businesses from going bankrupt, while others believe failing businesses should be allowed to close. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Write one paragraph, practicing both compound and complex sentences. Here is how an advanced candidate would respond. I only partly agree that governments should routinely offer a subsidy to prevent struggling businesses from facing bankruptcy. Because while short-term support can protect jobs, constant assistance may discourage a company from resolving its own liability problems or choosing to diversify. Although a sudden loss of revenue can threaten even well-run companies, a merger with a financially stronger partner is often a more sustainable outcome than relying indefinitely on public money. A more balanced approach, therefore, would be for governments to offer brief, conditional subsidies, since lasting recovery ultimately depends on a business restructuring itself rather than avoiding change altogether. For an opinion essay like this one, structure your paragraph in 3 moves. State your position clearly in the first sentence, give your main reason with an example, and then add a balancing or opposing point before your final view. Notice the model doesn't fully agree or fully disagree. It says, I only partly agree, and that kind of nuanced position is usually stronger than an extreme one. Also pay attention to linking words like although, and, therefore. They're doing the job of showing the examiner you can build complex sentences, not just short simple ones. As always, we'll walk through the advanced model answer. However, for the intermediate level, we'll You got through all 3 writing tasks, with a full explanation after each one this time. That's real, focused effort. Now, speaking. Part 1 asks about a business you've watched change over time. Part 2 has you describing a company that went through a merger, an acquisition, or a big change. And Part 3 gets into whether governments should step in to save failing businesses. Say your answers out loud, even if it feels a little silly. It genuinely helps. Here is how an intermediate candidate would respond. Yes, there's a small electronics shop near me that changed a lot. A few years ago it almost closed, but then it decided to diversify and started repairing phones as well as selling them. Now it's much busier than before. Here is how an advanced candidate would respond. Yes, there's a small electronics shop near me that's changed quite dramatically. A few years ago it nearly closed down, but it decided to diversify by offering phone repairs alongside sales, and it's noticeably busier now than it used to be. Here is how an advanced candidate would respond. I'll talk about a furniture company near my city, which was on the verge of bankruptcy a few years ago. Rather than accepting an acquisition offer from a much larger retailer, the owner opted for a merger with a rival firm instead. Following the merger, the company received a modest government subsidy and used the opportunity to diversify into online sales, while also choosing to outsource its delivery operations rather than managing them in-house. Overall, I feel fairly positive about this transformation, because the company is now thriving and has even started paying its investors a dividend. Here is how an intermediate candidate would respond. I'll talk about a furniture company near my city. A few years ago it was close to bankruptcy, so the owner agreed to a merger with another furniture business instead of accepting an acquisition offer. After the merger, they got a small government subsidy, and they decided to diversify into online sales. They also started to outsource their delivery instead of doing it themselves. I feel quite positive about this change, because now the company is doing well and even pays a dividend to its investors. Here is how an advanced candidate would respond. I'd say limited government support makes sense, but only on a short-term basis. Because if a business consistently receives a subsidy whenever it faces a liability problem, it may never be pushed to correct its own mistakes or diversify its offerings. On the other hand, allowing every struggling competitor to collapse into bankruptcy risks leaving a single dominant firm with something close to a monopoly, which rarely benefits consumers either. So, on balance, brief and carefully conditional support strikes the best compromise. Before we move on, there's a free printable workbook for this session. It's shown on your screen right now, and the link is also in the comments below. It mirrors everything you just worked through, but with space to actually write your answers instead of just reading them. If today's session helped, that workbook is a great next step, and I'd genuinely love to see how you get on with it, so feel free to share your progress in the comments too. And that's the full session, all 20 words across 2 pages, plus listening, reading, writing, and speaking today alone. That's genuinely impressive work. This next part is completely optional, just a little extra if you want it. There's a short talk on why some businesses succeed and others fail, plus a mini challenge. Find 3 new words from it, write a sentence with each, and connect it back to today's word diversify. Only if you're up for more. Before you go, a quick look at what's here. These are extra SparkSkyTech tools if you want to go deeper on a specific skill. The reading and listening resources sharpen those 2 skills specifically, the vocabulary builder and grammar guide help outside of session time, and the preparation hub and free resources page are worth a click anytime you want a broader refresher. No pressure to open any of them today, they'll be here whenever you need them. Down here in the footer, you'll find links to every skill hub, the full study journey series, and our Facebook group and YouTube channel if you want more support along the way. Before you close this tab, follow along next time, write your answers out instead of just thinking them, and if this helped, share it with a friend and subscribe on YouTube. Up next, a brand new topic. See you there.